So we've got a good looking fellow right here. We are now going to add a background. We're going to put him in his spooky environment. Say spooky. So to easily move the monster onto a background, we'll first need to merge the layers. Make sure all your layers are visible. And then we're going to choose Merge Visible from the Layers panel menu. So over here on your layers, if you see the little lines right here, if you click that, we're going to click Merge Visible. And that merges them all into one layer. By doing this, it permanently combines them into a single layer. That also reduces the file size of the Photoshop document. If you want to preserve the ability to edit selected layers separately, select the layers and choose New Group from Layers instead of Merge Visible in step 1, the one we just did. But we're fine doing what we did. It's named Layer 1 because that was the selected layer at the time of the merge. So we're going to rename Layer 1 Monster. All right. So now let's click File and then Open. And we are going to open Backdrop PSD. We're going to open that one. And there's our backdrop. We're going to then go to Window, Arrange, 2 up vertical, and they're side by side. Click this one over here to make sure it's active. Select the Move tool. And then we're going to drag the monster layer and drop it onto the background PSD file. So we're just going to click on this and drag it over and drop it. Then we're going to select the Move tool and we're going to drag it down to where his hands are right above the words, like thus. All right. Then we're going to close this, and when you get the message yes, click Save. We do want to save the changes that we had. So from now on, we're going to work on the movie poster file itself. But when we go to turn this lesson in later, you will turn in that working copy that you just were working on. So right now, let's do File, Save As, and we're going to title this one Movie Poster and your name. Make sure it's in your Lesson 9 folder and it's a Photoshop file, and click Save. A little bit ago when we were working on the brush tool, do you remember the keyboard shortcut to increase the brush size as you paint? Was it the plus key, the left arrow key, the right bracket key, or the left bracket key? Hopefully you remember that it's the right bracket key. We are now going to add a tombstone to the poster, and you'll experiment with filters and effects to see what works, using the history panel to reverse course if necessary, and I'll show you how to do that in just a little bit. So in Photoshop, choose File and then Open. Go to your Lesson 9 folder, and we are going to, the T1 is what we want. There's old RIP. Anybody know what RIP stands for? Rest in peace. I'm sure all of you knew that. The tombstone image is plain, but we're going to add texture and color to it. So in the Tools panel, we're going to click the default foreground and background colors icon, and we're going to change it to black. I didn't know this. If you hit the D is a shortcut to change that to black and white. I didn't know that. I just found that out. So you'll start by adding a little atmosphere to the tombstone. We're going to choose Filter and then Render. And then we're going to do Difference Clouds. Wow. The original is dull. Clouds adds a little drama. We're going to leave the top of the tombstone in focus, but blur the rest using an iris blur. And let me just say this, that your difference cloud probably looks different than mine. Every time, if you were to just do that over and over, it's going to look a little different every time. So choose filter and go to blur gallery and then iris blur. That enters the blur gallery task space that displays just the tools for certain blur effects. We're going to drag this up to where only the top part of it is in focus, and then click OK. If you want to change the shape and area of that blur effect, you could drag those handles that were on the side. Dragging near the circle near the center is an alternate way to control the blur amount you want to see. So you're going to use adjustment layers to make the image darker and change its color. So go over here to your adjustments panel and drag this down so we can see them. And we are going to do the brightness contrast. And let's move our brightness over to, I'm going to go to about 70, 71, somewhere around there. Click the channels mixer in the adjustments panel. Channel mixer. And we're going to change the green value to 37 and the blue value to 108. Okay, once again, I baffled myself. I'm like, why isn't mine green? Because I forgot where it says output channel, it's red right now. Change it to green. Once you've changed that to green, change this to 37. Change this to, I'm going to change it to 109. That's not, that's, you can get it whatever color you wish. I'm just messing around here. So there's going to be my green. So get yours where it has a green cast to it. The channel mixer is a useful option for correcting color balance, usually by applying much smaller values than you used here. The channel mixer is also an alternative to the black and white adjustment for controlling how colors are converted to grayscale and for tinting colors. In this case, you use the channel mixer to make a purely creative color adjustment to an image. So go back to adjustments and we're going to click exposure. Where's my exposure? That one. And we're going to move the slider, the exposure slider over to where it's got more of a to where it's brightened some. Get it however you like it. So now we're going to work on undoing multiple steps. The tombstone certainly looks different than it did when you started, but it doesn't quite match the tombstones that are already in the poster. You'll use a history panel to revisit the steps you've taken. If the history panel isn't already open, we're going to choose Window and then History. And you can see over here, I'm going to drag this down, and this shows you all the things that we've done. So drag that down so you see the entire list. The history panel records the recent steps you've performed on the image. The current state is selected, so the most thing that we just did last is right here. The history panel lists the steps you've done in this session only. The list is reset when you close a document, so when you open a document, the history panel is empty. Click the Blur Gallery state right here in the history panel. The states below the selected channel are dimmed and the image just changed. The color is gone, as are the brightness contrast settings. At this point, the difference clouds filter has been run and the iris blur filter has been applied. Everything else has been removed. There are no adjustment layers in the layers panel. So you see down here, so if I were to go back to this, you see I've got all these things over here. But if I go back up here and click on this, all of those things that I've done are gone. It's an easy way that if you've done some stuff and instead of doing Command Z or Control Z over and over and over and over again, you can use the history to go back to what you've done. So let's see here. I know some of y'all are mad at me for doing all this and we're getting rid of stuff, but that's okay, you'll get over it. So click the Modify Channel Mixer layer. So if you click right here, you see that many of the states are restored. The color is returned along with the brightness and contrast settings. There are 2 adjustment layers in the Layers panel. You see those over here. However, the states below the one you selected remain dimmed, these 2 here, and the exposure adjustment layer is not listed in the Layers panel. You return almost to the beginning to apply different effects to the tombstone. Click Difference Clouds in the History panel. Everything following that state is dimmed. We're going to choose Filter, and then Noise, and then we're going to add noise. We're going to change the amount to 3%. We're going to select Gaussian Blur, Monochromatic, and then click OK. The states that were dimmed after the state you selected over here are no longer in the history panel. They were replaced by the task you just performed, which was to add noise. You can click any state to return to that point in the process, but as soon as you perform a new task, Photoshop replaces all dimmed states. So let me ask you this. How can you make sure you're seeing everything in the history panel? Remember what we did where we clicked this and drug it down? That's how you make sure, because if it's just right here, you don't see everything. So you got to drag it down, and that way you make sure. So the tombstone is ready to join the others in your movie poster. So choose Window, Arrange, Tile All Vertically, and then we are going to select the Move tool. Click on this. Why do I have two? Oh, I don't need this end one right here. It's like, why do I have two? Click on the tombstone, and we're going to drag it over here. Why is mine doing stuff? If you get a paste profile mismatch, click OK. And we're going to simply drag this down here to where you can see the tombstone. You want to be able to see the RIP. Rest in peace. Okay. So let's click File and then Save. You've had a chance to try some new filters and effects and to use the history panel to backtrack. By default, the history panel retains only the last 50 states. You can change the number of levels in the history panel by choosing Edit Preferences Performance or Photoshop Preferences Performance and entering a different value for history states. So when you click a previous state in the history panel, what happens to all the states that came after that one you performed? They are deleted. So we've saved it, so this would be a good time to end this video.